All right, we're recording. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Hope and Hysteria. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Ginny.
I'm Clarissa.
I'm Alyssa.
And it has been a minute, so thank you for your patience. A lot of things are happening right now in the world and in our lives. So, and we also just wanted to kind of spend some time talking about how we wanted to do this and restructuring and all that stuff. But we have decided that we are going to do a series for you on dating. Dun, 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 dun.
Everyone loves it. Everyone hates it. It's so great.
Yes. And we have a lot, between the three of us, we have a lot to share about it. So we sent the call out to you guys for some questions. Today's episode is going to be on the beginning parts of dating, starting a relationship, how that looks. So we got a few questions from you guys. We're going to answer. We're going to share a couple stories, and we're going to share at the end some of our dating profile do's and don'ts. Mainly don'ts, probably. So let's get started right now with some questions. The first question that we have comes from Nick, and Nick asked, how do you ask out a coworker? And I know that Clarissa has some very strong opinions about that. I know Alyssa also has some opinions about that. So, Clarissa, why don't you share what you think?
Oh, I love that you let me go first. I am Nick. I assure you are a lovely person, but that's going to be a no for me, dog. The answer is you don't. That is a sticky situation to be in. And I say that because I've been there and it crumbled, and then you're in a work environment that feels hostile, and you're in work most of your time. So, no. And I guess too, what are you hoping for? I get, you're hoping it's going to be great and work out. I just think there's way more that could go wrong with it than could go right with it. And the consequences are just greater. Are you going to have to leave your job as some or the other person? Oh, man, I have so many strong relations. I don't know, y'all feel... I'm just no, I have nothing to give. Don't do it. It really messes up the jive of things. There's more, there's just another time and place. What, are y'all going to be there forever? Probably not. So if you're meant to be, do it later. That's not the time. That's how I feel.
Interesting. What are your thoughts, Alyssa?
Well, somewhat similar to Clarissa. I think in my mind, I a lot of times just take those people right off the table. I just don't even allow that to be a consideration. Maybe if those people were within my work environment, but in different departments or different offices, I feel like I'd be down, maybe, because I wouldn't have to be around them all the time. But I also know that sometimes our heart wants what it wants, and sometimes we meet someone that's just really wonderful, and sometimes things are going to happen. But I think for the most part, I don't know, there's certain people or groups of people in my life, I just completely am just not even going to think about it, not even going to go there. And that's mostly what I do in that area. And I've had some rough experiences with even working at a place close to another. But I used to work at a mall, and I worked at one store, and the person worked at the next store, and
That's
there was
a real Romeo and Juliet story.
I was basically, yeah, it's a modern day. Actually, it's not model. Are malls modern? I don't know.
Oh.
Not in small towns, but yeah, it might also be a no for me, dog. Not
Okay, so
wait. Sorry, Jenny. I'm gonna let you speak, like Kanye says. I'm gonna let you speak.
I'll let you finish, but
I got something else. I think too, when you start dating somebody, that even if you know them, you want to have that time to get to know them on a different level. And I don't think you want to be with them all the time. Like, you still need time to like sort it out, feel yourselves out. And it's like, I can't even process how I feel because you're always there. So I don't see how it's a good situation. The person is just always there. You don't have time to yourself. And it's like, hey, do you want to hang out later? We just spent 40 hours together this week. Do I want to spend more together? Probs not. Like,
I have so many thoughts. I'm going to try to keep them concise. So I know a couple who work together, live together, are married, they have a kid. They don't work in the same department anymore, but they did for many years live in, they work in the same like tiny little space together. And they always claimed it wasn't a problem. But they did also, like, you would bring problems from work home. Like they'd be mad at each other about something from work at home, which makes it a little awkward. Also, I think that I'm not like Alyssa. In my head, there's not really anybody that's off limits. Never really, maybe that's a bit of a problem, but to me, everyone's an option. And I think it comes from this life is short and you only have so many connections with people, you know? And I think sometimes if you're not someone that connects with a lot of people, when you do meet someone that you're jiving with, it sucks to think like this is going to be the extent of our relationship and it's never going to be anything more. So I also think it just depends on like how you handle breakups and how some people in a relationship ends and it's fine and it's not the end of the world. So I think it's really, how do you ask a coworker out is like, are you prepared for the consequences of a rejection, or are you prepared for what will happen if it doesn't work out? Mm-hmm. But also it could be really nice and you like get to see the person that you care about every day and you guys can share like similar stories and stuff like that. And I happen to know also, this is a little bit more to the story that he told me later, was he like has been hinting to her that he wants to go out, and like she's taking it as like a friend or he thinks she's taking it as like, oh, like just friends. And so he's like, how do I, make it clear that I'm looking for it to be a date? So I think there you have to really be careful about your work sexual harassment policy. Mm-hmm. Like that's a real thing. Like you don't want to make her uncomfortable, and you don't want it to be perceived as like a harassing thing. So I would say, I don't know. I think so answer the question, how do you ask a coworker out? Don't do it is your
I like what you said about if you're going to do it, you need to be prepared for the consequences of rejection. You also need to be prepared, like, some people suck. Like, they're gonna probably talk about that with other coworkers. And hopefully the person you like doesn't suck, but maybe you're still getting to know them. And also, I personally love straightforwardness, even though I'm not always the best at it. And I really respect that when because I think I don't initially assume someone's interested in me, even when they are seemingly maybe interested in me. And so I can be oblivious in that sense. Like, so just straightforward, like, hey, I know I've mentioned going out a few times. I just want to clarify, like, I'm interested in like going on a date. Like, that's what I'm interested in. If you're not, that's okay. I think you're really cool, but that's what I'm about. So
I like that. I think some specificity as well. Like, I think so. This is what I imagine being a successful event would be, to go up to this person and be like, hey, I would like to take you out on a date tonight. Do you have plans? Like, I want to take you on a date tonight. That takes away the ability for someone to be like, yeah, we should do that sometime, even though they don't want to. And then if she's like, oh, I can't tonight, I have plans, but definitely let's do it some other time. And you'd be like, okay, cool, I'm free on Saturday. I think it's a one conversation thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, put it out there. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And be prepared to move on with your life.
Yeah.
And hopefully You both are. I mean, I'm still strong on the no, but if you're gonna do it anyway, because everyone has their own free will, I think I would hope that in this situation we're all adults and that we can be mature about the situation, whoever you're asking out or whatever. So if it goes like a no, okay, let's hope the other person can be mature enough. And if they're not, then you didn't need to be with them anyway because they're not mature.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I agree with that too. And some of these things can be used across the board, like this being straightforward, being specific, with anybody you're trying to ask out. So.
And it's hard because I think being vague feels safer. Like it feels like it like gives room for a non-rejection, or like it gives room for like your ego a little bit to be like, oh, well, it's not they didn't want to go out with me. It's like they can't go out. They're like, busy for the next 3 months or whatever. So it sucks. In some ways it sucks, but in the other ways it's like it just doesn't, you don't drag it out as long. You can just get it over with, peel off the Band-Aid, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, I feel like we nailed it again. Check. Nick, for answer.
You're welcome, Nick.
Hold on a second. Sorry, hold on.
Oh, Alyssa's out.
We lost her.
Nailed it.
Perfect. That's perfect. All right. So, Alyssa, I think you had our next question.
I sure do. So this one comes from a friend. I think they wish to remain anonymous, and they said, "How do you let acquaintances and colleagues know you are completely open to them setting you up with others?" So what do y'all think? How can you, without seeming desperate, was there extension of that too? So,
I'm kind of like, I'm going to speak. I didn't really think about this answer, but what, I guess the seeming desperate part, but what would make you seem desperate? Because like, I'm open, I'm single. It's evident. Everyone knows like I'm single. I'm taking this from my personal. So I think if people talked about being single, my first thought would not be like, oh, they're desperate, And so to just having a converse, I think, how do you let acquaintances or colleagues know that you're open to being set up is like, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I even go the route of like, do you have anybody? You have any good looking friends? I don't know if that could count, but like I'm single and how close are you with your colleagues? Y'all talk about this too? And that's kind of, I'll have more to say, but I think right now that's where I'm at. Like just saying, I'm single, I'm open to meeting, or you can be like, I'm open to meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
I love meeting people. Like capacities that. So even they come from that angle.
I think it's, when I think about I'm assuming and maybe projecting onto this person, but like maybe what they mean by like not seeming desperate is like, I think when you ask someone for help in general, there's a vulnerability there.
Right.
Then something specific like, I can't find someone to be with, can feel a little, like, and I think this also comes from the sort of old school way of thinking about dating where it's like, you meet a gentleman and the gentleman is attracted to you and then he asks you out and you meet him in a bar. It's like, I don't understand why people are more comfortable with meeting a random stranger at a bar that is attractive than seeing someone on a dating profile or having someone set you up. Like, I don't understand why that is more acceptable, but I think it's kind of an old school way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Also, I think it says, there's something in my life that I don't have that I want, I know when I've been single in the past, I didn't necessarily want people to know that I wanted to be with someone, and it was something I wanted and didn't have. So maybe there's that too. So there's a couple of things there. Not that neither of those things could be even remotely close to the truth, but that's how I think could be. And I think I agree with Clarissa. And then what we were saying before, like Alyssa was saying before, like being straightforward and saying like, hey, I think I'm ready to start dating again, or it would be cool to meet some new people, or like you're saying. And then like even you could say, I mean, like that's a pretty apt. Well, it's hard right now with COVID stuff, but like having a group hang. That's what I used to do a lot when I was younger. Is like we'd have a group hang like, hey, invite your friend. It was cute. And then I will maybe make out with them in my living room to everyone's discomfort. That may have happened. That may have happened, Amount.
A few times. No, I'm just kidding.
Just a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree, and I with some of what y'all said too. And then I've actually done the thing, like the joking thing, like to get like people I work with, like, hey, y'all know anybody? Like, or just like, haha, like, and I like maybe I'd already talked about it with a couple people, but there was this one coworker I hadn't really hit up about if they knew anyone. I'm like, hey, you got any friends? You can set me up with, just kind of like joking. If you do have a good relationship with your coworkers, I mean, it should just be a silly thing. And you know, that person started telling me about someone they knew, and pretty quickly I was like, that does not sound like the person that I would be interested in, but thank you for letting me know. And I do know, I know this person wouldn't mind if I shared a little more context. I do know this person does not really use apps, or they have, and they haven't had the best experiences. And they've kind of strayed away from that. And I think there was one more piece I wanted to add, but I cannot remember what it was. But so that's kind of a different sort of thing. But yeah, that's.
I think too, and just all seriousness, because I mean, I can definitely relate to being single, as I am now. I'm single, y'all. If anyone is out there, I'm single. Is with that vulnerability piece too. I mean, I think we just talked about assertiveness, right? And how that is good, because right now, if we're sitting and we're not meeting anyone, we're kind of losing a lot. And if that's what we want in something. And so even sitting with, hey, do you all know anything? Or even a conversation with whatever, I don't know what this person has with their colleagues, but I think this question can relate to a lot of people. Depending on your relationship with colleagues, could even be like, I don't really use dating apps, but I am looking to date. Do y'all like know anyone or have any suggestions? Because then they could, come in and say something. Because right now, I mean, you got nothing to lose. I mean, vulnerability a little bit, but even in dating, you got to give a little bit of that, I think. Mm-hmm. So why not practice right now?
Oh, I like that.
I like that too. And I love how we keep, we've mentioned vulnerability at least 5 or 6 times. And I think that's really cool.
We love it.
We love it. And I know we'll continue to talk about that throughout, this whole, this whole series, but I just think that's a big buzzword for us if y'all haven't noticed.
The big V.
Virginity? No.
That's not my mind, but Jenny. Sure, yeah, the big V of vulnerability, yes.
That's what I'm going to start using. Well, I think we nailed another one. Get the hammer out. Nailed it. All right. So we will end our question session. I don't know what question segment with a question from Clarissa.
Yeah, I think my friend also wants to remain anonymous. I sounded a little country on that. How do you show up to a relationship when you have trauma? And I think that's a big question. And I also think it's something that we'll get more into. I mean, no surprise here, y'all. We're all social workers. So trauma is throughout, and we will talk about it throughout. I think this question was brought up too in the part of just starting a relationship. Like, how do you start it? When do you start it? That's kind of how I took this question. Ginny, is that kind of how you're seeing this question, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing that comes to mind when I hear like starting a relationship, dealing with your trauma is are you ready? Are you ready? Because I know we often want a relationship. We feel like we need one, or we just want one. We want companionship. We want connection. We want all of those things. But if you're really looking for like a relationship, that's going to be successful, you need to be ready to show up in that vulnerable way. And so it's hard, but it's possible that if you're not ready, you're not ready. Where are you in your journey? Are you willing to work on your trauma? And then I think that also speaks like what your partner that you're going to be with, where are they in their trauma work as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think like we could talk forever about this, and I think it's going to be important like in every part of the relationship that we talk about going forward in our series, like trauma and how you're responding to it is always going to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
The big one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, it's, I think I had shared like something with a quote on it recently on social media, and it was, talking about how, whether we deal with trauma or not, it's painful. But it's much more painful to not deal with that trauma. And, it's just gonna, whether we deal with it or not, it's gonna hurt in different ways. And, when we are dealing with it, we can kind of prepare for some triggers that might come up. And we can also share that in a vulnerable way with someone we care about. But if we're not, then things are gonna, with anything, things are gonna pop up no matter what, but it's probably gonna happen a lot more. If you're not dealing with it, you're not already realizing these triggers that you have. And also, if you're entering into something new after you haven't, had a relationship for a while, there's probably gonna be things that pop up that you don't even think about. And you're like, oh, this is this, and oh, this experience I had is impacting it in this way. And you might experience some surprises, but just, being able to, experience that with yourself is really important.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And Alyssa, or Jenny, if you want to answer this, but Alyssa, you said about dealing with your triggers, and I don't know if, I know that's a word we all use often, but would one of you care explaining like what triggers are, like explain what that is? Because I know some people may not know what that means.
Well, I know I don't have a definition, but basically a trigger would just be, something that has an effect on you, an impact on you, or maybe, it's something that happens that just maybe it reminds you. There could be trigger, there could be reminders that remind you of this difficult thing. Sometimes maybe even making you feel like you're back in that situation even. So it's really, it could be anything. Some people are triggered by certain items. Some people are triggered by certain phrases. Or maybe if a certain feeling comes up, or if they start, I think a lot about anxiety and social anxiety, and maybe when you're, pushed into something, or, it can come up in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful, because wonderful in your explanation, because triggers are a lot of like reminders, and just like I think you said, Alyssa, it can be a sight, smell, something like a situation, a feeling. It can be anything. And so when you're getting into, when I think of trauma in a relationship, I think you both said amazing things. Where Ginny, it was kind of like, are you willing to work on it? Where are you in your journey type of thing? That's kind of where I took yours. And Alyssa, when you mentioned, I took a lot of what you said, Alyssa, like have grace with yourself, and how prepared are you for like those triggers? I agree with both of that. And with this question, I sit pretty deep with it, because I recently had a situation that I was seeing somebody that I really liked. And it's just, I think when you have to deal with trauma, you have to be ready. Like, where are you at? Because can I really give, if I haven't dealt with my stuff, how much can I actually give to someone else? Or am I going to project that onto the other person? So yeah, are you willing to work on it? Where are you at with it? Because no matter where you're at in a relationship, it's not someone else's job to take on your trauma or be that person for you to help you process and heal through that. They can support you, but it's not their job. So how do you show up to a relationship when you have trauma is just like make sure you're working on it. And I think we can go into where you can start with that in like more episodes, but make sure you're working on it. And I think in a relationship too, whenever you get started, like Ginny, like you said, is if I'm in the middle of the road working on my trauma, I probably shouldn't be with someone that's at the beginning of their road, because it makes it really difficult to kind of keep on your level playing field. Aren't the same. I hope that makes sense in what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think one thing this is really making me think is like, we never really, you can have a lot of self-awareness, and it's important to have self-awareness, especially when you're dealing with trauma. Like you guys were saying, knowing your triggers, knowing what is going to do that, and you don't necessarily know what that always is going to be. But then also like having grace with another person who is recognizing that they're not where they thought they would be, and having grace with yourself. I don't know, it's just like, again, it's that communication piece and that vulnerable piece. It's like, you, just because you may have started something and you're like, oh, you know what, I wasn't ready for this. Yep. You owe it to yourself and to that person to not continue down a path that is leading them to believe that you're ready for something you're not. I don't know. I kind of got off, but I just think it's not just about what you need. It's also about thinking about that other person that you're in a relationship with. You owe it to them to deal with your trauma, if you want it to truly be a healthy and successful relationship.
Yeah, just being honest with yourself and that other person. And I think something else is really important with when we're dealing with anything that's difficult, and especially if we're entering into like a new relationship or a new situation, and we have had a history of trauma, or we're still figuring things out, just having someone to help you or hold you accountable, whether that's a friend or a counselor, just someone to troubleshoot things off of with, like, just even like, hey, like this happened and I'm not sure why this happened, like, or this happened and I thought that I was being straightforward and I actually was being super vague. Help me, counselor. So just there's so many things. And I also wanted to real quick share this thing called the wound analogy, which I know y'all probably know about the wound analogy, but the wound analogy basically is something we talk about in trauma, especially I know when Clarissa and I are starting like trauma focused therapy, that we would probably talk about this. And the idea is, if you fall off your bike, you get hurt, you scrape your knee up, you're going to have gravel and grass and dirt and gross, all kinds of grossness in it. And, if you don't clean that out, it's going to get infected, right? It's going to get pretty gross. It's going to hurt really bad. If it happens and you do go and start to clean it out, you're pulling all those things out, you're pulling the grass and the dirt and the rocks out, that's also really going to hurt. But after you clean it and it's able to heal, it's going to feel so much better. And so trauma is a lot like that. If we let it sit, it's going to fester. But there's also that, you also have to respect that sometimes it takes time to get to the place where you're ready to take things out and clean them. But just knowing that when you do, it is gonna be good. It's gonna hurt, but it's gonna get a lot better. So there's that.
I agree. That was good. And I think there's no wrong time to start working on your trauma. Maybe you realize right now to your listeners, you're like, well, I'm in the middle of this relationship and I realize I have not worked on that. Go ahead and do it. I mean, honestly, like Alyssa said, it's going to be hard. You're going to dig at that wound and it is going to sting. But I think in the long term, if you are with someone right now, your partner will thank you later for it. Because there's nothing more painful than an untold story, like that you're holding in. So, so start. I mean, scary, but I'm sure it's painful holding it in. That's what I got. I think that was good.
Oh, you guys, that was so good. Alyssa, get that hammer out. You nailed it.
That's not gonna be our thing.
That is gonna be our thing.
That's our tagline.
Okay, all right.
I'm shutting it down. You said cut it out. No,
We'll see how the response is. We got to see how it feels.
we need a vote.
Yeah, let us know that it didn't work so we don't do it.
All right. Okay. So thank you guys so much. Those were our questions. Please continue to send your questions in. We will definitely answer them in some shape or form, hopefully. We will. And we haven't really talked about what our next segment is going to be, so we will let you know, and then we'll ask for specific questions about that. But please send in any questions about relationship, dating, trauma, all that stuff. So the next part, we wanted to share a little bit about the beginning of a relationship. I want to share a little bit about experience I had, because I think that the experience that I had in meeting one of my partners is something that a lot of people wouldn't do. And I just wanted to say that I did something that was kind of contrary to what everyone was telling me to do, and it worked out. That doesn't mean you should always do something that everybody's telling you not to do. But so just to give you guys some context, I was like in my mid-20s, and I had always dated people who had just kind of like fallen into my life, usually coworkers, which we talked about, or people who had like friends who I had met, like mutual friends, and then they would set me up or whatever. But it was never like I wasn't intentionally seeking anybody. It just kind of a connection would happen and I would date them, and then it would always be very bad. And so I kind of made this New Year's resolution. I think it was it was 2011, the new year. And I was like, I want to be more intentional about going after what I want. And so a friend of mine had just gotten a smartphone. This was back when not everybody had smartphones all the time. And he had just gotten a smartphone, and he had his Facebook app on there that he had just downloaded. And he was looking at it, and he was like, oh my God, this guy I know, the only interest he has listed is women. And I was like, okay, so I think you're looking at the what he's interested in dating part of the app. Let me take a look at it. So I looked at it, and I was looking at this guy's profile. I was like, yeah, see, here are his interests. And it was like, oh, these are all the things that I'm interested in. It was like The West Wing and other things, like politics and stuff like that. I can't think of the specific examples. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I scrolled down to his profile, and at the time, or his like news feed. And at the time, there was a show that I was watching called Battlestar Galactica. And in that show, they used a particular curse word. Instead of the F word, they would say frack. And he had a little thing about the word frack in there. And I just started watching the show. So I was like, I got to meet this guy. I'm going after it. He's cute. We have the same interest. I'm doing it. So I asked my friend to hook us up. And my friend was like, I don't know. No, I don't think you guys would hit it off. That's not going to work. I was like, okay. And then I looked at his profile again, and I saw we had another mutual friend. So I called that mutual friend up, and I said, hey, mutual friend, let's go out, get a drink. We haven't talked in a while. So we went out, and I said, hey, you have this friend. I would love to go out with him. Will you introduce us? And he was like, no, I don't think you guys would be very good together. And I was like, okay. And so I had basically just given up. And my other friends were like, well, I was like, maybe I'll just ask this guy out. And they're like, no, that's weird. You can't do that. Like, you don't know him. And also like, just like try to present yourself in a situation where he might see you. And that's not the kind of person I am. I'm not a great first impression person. And I just kind of given up on it. And I was talking to my brother on the phone, and I had recently gotten out of a relationship, and he was asking like, oh, how are you doing? How's your dating scene, whatever. And I said, well, is this guy I really like? But everyone says I shouldn't try. And he was like, listen, Ginny, you're a weirdo. And the sooner that you can let someone that you're interested in know that you're a weirdo, the better off, because they're going to see that you're a weirdo, and they're either going to be into it or they're not. And if they're not, then you want to know that pretty early on. And that makes perfect sense. So I sent this guy a Facebook message out of the blue. I said, hey, I saw your profile. I'm recently watching Battlestar Galactica, and I think you seem pretty neat. So I just wanted to say hi. And he was like, oh, wow, that's really bold, but all right, hi. And that person ended up being my husband. So I mean, we are divorced now, but that was many years later and had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with it.
Jenny, you definitely used your friend. You're like, oh, wow, we haven't chatted in a long time. That's to get a date.
Yeah, he was probably like, yeah, I haven't seen my friend in so long. We're gonna get reconnect. And as soon as he said no, I was like, okay, well, I gotta go. You got the bill.
Yeah, bye.
But
I imagine them being like that made you want to meet him and hang out with him that much more. Like them being like, no, I don't know. That's how I would. Yeah.
Well, it's part of my like my contrarian attitude of like, you can't tell me who I am. Like you can't tell me what would work and what wouldn't work for me. But so yeah, that's true. So anyway, so I just want to say that was not, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have, and even though we're not together anymore, he and I had a very wonderful relationship. I became a better person through that. He became a better person through our relationship. So I consider it a successful relationship, even though it did end. So just wanted to say, do something that scares you. Do something, if you feel like it makes so much sense to you and it represents who you are, don't be afraid to do it just because maybe it doesn't seem like the cool thing to do, or what people are telling you, they don't really get it. Because if another person will get it, then maybe that's the person that you'll end up getting married to.
I also take from that story is they were like, no, that's not going to work. Like, kind of heard like not your type. I say go after sometimes people that aren't your type, because I mean that actually worked out in my case. I mean, I'm single, y'all, that's no surprise, but like the relationship I had with this person was great and they weren't my type. So I take that from that story.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys did have a lot in common, even though they thought he wouldn't work out.
Right. Because he was a very shy person. They didn't know much about him. You know what I mean? Like, so I had an opportunity to see him, which is why I think dating profiles and like social media stuff is a perfectly fine way to get to know someone, because they are putting themselves out there. So anyway, that was my story that I wanted to share. I thought it was relevant. I thought it was helpful, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to end, I think variety is the spice of life. Like I love a diverse array of people. And I guess I'm going to share a story too. In my story, I feel like that's the exact opposite of Jenny's story. So we'll just, I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said that to start, but oh well.
I'm excited. I love stories that end in disaster.
It's definitely weird. And so, all right, so this story takes place, I'm in undergrad, and so I'm probably around 1920. And I was a journalism major and ended up working at my advisor's own newspaper in the community next to our college's community, so like the next county over. And there was like a hurricane and these churches were doing really great work in the community, so I went to go do an article about that, take some photos. And when I was there, this very nice man was giving me some information, was being really helpful, and was also very attractive and very tall. And then like he kind of was like, do you want to get my number just in case you want to like ask me some more questions? And yeah, and so I was like, sure, yeah. And again, very nice, seemed really cool. Just, I thought he was there volunteering and helping out. And so we did that. And then I go back to the office, I'm doing my thing. He starts texting me and kind of texts me like, hey, I'm in the area kind of close to the office. And says something like he sees the office. And at this point, I'm like, I don't really know you. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, do not come to my office. Why are you around here? And so I was a little weirded out by that, but I just kind of tried to brush it off. And then we ended up setting up a date. And so we went out, and when I got to the church, I was going to pick him up. There was a truck there, he said was his own. And in hindsight, I don't think that was his truck. I think he just said that. And so we went out to eat, and because there was someone else driving the truck, like just to say that too, like someone else was in this truck, and he like wanted me to come and get him from this church. And so we go out to eat. I see this like really cute baby, and he was a black man, and he made a statement like, oh, we'd have some really cute mixed babies. And I was like, that's a lot to say on the first time we're hanging out.
Yeah, don't say that on the first date.
It's a lot. It's kind of a lot. I'm like, I'm sure we would, but and then through our conversations, he tells me that his mother has a mansion in Rocky Mount. If you know anything about Rocky Mount, there ain't no mansions there. And then he also goes on to tell me he's a volunteer firefighter, and he also is he does, I think, carpentry or architecture, building houses. And then like he owned his own business. And then later on, I found out he was an undercover cop. And I just, so I'm just saying this because he's just pulling out the red. He's just pulling them out. He's pulling them out.
Alyssa is like
pulling them out, and I'm
she's
just
doing her prop comedy.
My dryer's not working, and this rag was drying on the chair. And that's not all. There's more. But wait, there's more. And so we watch. I'm trying to be polite. I'm trying to be nice throughout this whole thing. I'm trying to be normal. Whatever. I'm just like, let's just get through this. We go to the movies. He rubs my feet during the movie. He gets this call, and he says, because he's an undercover cop, they want him to help with a drug bust. He gets me to take him and drop him off somewhere in the middle of fucking nowhere. In the middle of nowhere. It's like an abandoned building. And I drop him off. He makes me get out of the car to hug him. This whole time, I'm thinking, this is it. Like, I'm about to lose my life. And I drop him off, and that's that, right? It's over. The end. Probably never going to see that person again. So that's not where it ends. Later on, I get a call. He's been arrested. He said the drug bust was a setup. I do not believe the drug bust was a setup. I do not believe that, because I don't believe he was an undercover cop. I don't think he was a volunteer firefighter. All these things. And so I continue to get phone calls. I get a call from his dad, supposedly saying, why aren't you helping him? Don't you care about him? Like, I don't even know him. Like, and it's just like, I mean, for months and months, I get these calls from like the Department of Corrections. And I have family members that have been incarcerated, and I know about them Department of Corrections phone calls. And so my point is, my moral to this story, I believe, is when they start pulling out the red flags, start pulling out. Just get out of there. And then also, I'm fine, right? Like, I turned out okay from this, but it could have very easily gone wrong in several places. And I just want more women to just like, don't be nice. Don't take it. Don't deal with it. Get out of there, because we don't know what could happen. And thank goodness I'm fine. But
oh my God, Alyssa.
And also, I looked this guy up later. He had charge upon charge upon charge upon charge, like so many charges.
Was a drug dealer.
Well, I know. Yes, it was. I mean, he probably could have made a really great life for us. I don't know.
I mean, oh my God. And Alyssa, I like that you said, don't be I think I was taught, like, be a young lady, be nice. No, if you are in a situation you feel uncomfortable, it is not your job to be nice. Get out of there. You know when I would have gotten out of there? One, probably when he touched my feet in the movie.
To me, that was like, what? And I'm not
feet?
Alyssa, I think that's how we're programmed to be like, continue to be polite and kind and nice. Yeah. Even when people are giving us a million red flags, that you need to trust your gut. And I think that's true for like most things.
Yeah.
Dating and like meeting people. Trust your gut, man. If it doesn't feel, if someone's telling you that they,
No one has that many jobs.
Yes. And that was not his truck. And
No, you had to drop him to his drug deal, Alyssa. That was not his
But see,
truck.
here's where I think being more straightforward is helpful, because you can be like, hey, why is that guy in your truck then? Please
I think I asked, but he's like, oh, I'm just letting him use it.
I'm sure he was a good BSer, probably.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's probably tall, dark, and handsome, and I know that'd be blinded. I mean, probably would have blinded me for a hot minute.
I mean,
so from our stories, I think you can gather. Here's what I think you can gather: do things that make you trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Yeah, that's what I got out of this.
Trust your gut.
yeah.
Alyssa, I like that story. I mean, because I took a lot
like
out.
that story.
Are you kidding me? I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, what's this guy gonna do next?
The whole time I was like that. I was like watching a horror movie. Like, why are you going upstairs? There's somebody else.
Yes.
Glad you're okay, Alyssa.
Yes, thank the Lord.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it is, and it's just, I really, and I feel like I've become a much more straightforward person, and I think I'm good at calling people out on their BS sometimes. We all have room to grow. But yeah, it's important, and I don't know, it just makes me sad, because I do feel like sometimes women get harmed just because they are being nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's listen to your gut, yeah.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't even want to go out with him. Like, I was just like, oh, I should do this just to do it. Like, I like
comfort zone and be unsafe.
Bleh, yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm glad you're okay.
It's funny.
Good stories, y'all. Good stories.
Well, I guess, and on that note, we will move on to the final segment of our episode. This is going to be probably a little bit longer than our others, but I think it's all quality. Seems like it's all quality content to me.
I would say so.
I mean, I'm a little skeptical on the nailed it bit, but we'll get back to that.
All right. So finally, our Tinder do's and don'ts, and I think let's just go for it. Or not Tinder, but like dating profile do's and don'ts.
I want to know that I'm an expert because I am single, and obviously I know what should go in a profile because I'm single. I'll just name a few and then I can pass the card, but don't just have one photo, because you know what that tells me? That tells me that you can't make a decision on, you're like, I can only make this one decision and that's it. No, so have more than one photo. And two, why I am 27, so, I'm probably, you're an adult at this point. If you only have one good photo, I'm concerned. Just concerned.
It just shows not enough effort.
No. And so if I see you put no effort in a dating profile, you're going to put no effort into a relationship, and I got no time for you. Bye. The next thing I want to add that goes along with that, have something in your bio. Okay, some of you look really good, but looks only get you so far, and I need to know, what are your interests? I like to work out, but is that all you're into? I don't need that. And it could be boring. Have something in your bio. Let me know about yourself. Oh, God, it gets on my nerves.
No bio, that's literally like, I want to get laid. Click, here's my face. That's what that says to me.
I mean, I could easily do that, but do you see? Just kidding. But
yeah, you would get laid in a second. That's not the issue.
I just want quality, and no bio means no effort. Just like one picture, no effort. That's my 2 cents on that.
What you got, Alyssa?
I feel like mine are more personally driven, and just some things I don't enjoy myself. And no hate to people who are interested in these things, or it's your thing, but it's just not my thing. And I see a lot of this, but I guess more of the general things might be, I see a lot of people that will have like these weird pictures and then it'll have like a little bio that's like, I'm here and my partner doesn't know. And so like they're trying to like, cheat on someone they're committed to. That's not cool. And then, I think it's important for, I guess, anybody on an app to be straight. We just love some straightforwardness today. Straightforwardness and vulnerability is our business today. And
that's my business.
Because that's your business.
That's your business.
So, and I think just people who are like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. People who
some people are.
Some people are, and I guess
yeah,
straightforward. I don't know.
Tinder, yeah, I would prefer you put that in your bio if that's actually what you're there for.
I hear that.
I would. I don't want to get in it, and then you're like, oh, I'm just here for a good time. Well, yeah. I'd rather know that when we start.
I think something that's been overwhelming for me on these apps is like, it feels like everyone's there for a good time. I'm like, who's here for a long time?
I don't want to be bored. I've never heard it phrased that way. Yeah, I'm not here to look. I'm not looking to be bored. That's good for you.
Where are they? And then, I'm just not really honest. This is personal. This is all personal. It's very personal. I'm just not really interested in super fit people or people that look perfect or people with dead animals in their picture. Again, no. If you got one fish, it's good. But if hunting is your personality, I'm not about it. But if that's you, if that's what you like, you do you. You be you. Okay? But it's not for me. And Snapchat filters, I can't do those. Sorry.
Yours seem less like how to get a date on Tinder and or more like how to date Alyssa on Tinder.
Yeah.
Just in case y'all were curious.
That's Alyssa for it. Yep.
After I made this list, I did make a disclaimer. I said, I made this list and I realized I'm going to die alone. It is what it is.
Here we are. So all these people out here that have Snapchat filters, if you want to date Alyssa, you need to be taking those off.
Oh man.
And I don't know, do we have anything to add to the do's and don'ts?
I have a couple things. Granted, now I'm not currently single. Sorry, ladies or gentlemen or whatever. I'm not currently single, but I have some thoughts, as I often have thoughts about things that aren't necessarily relevant to me. And that because I was on the apps for quite a while. And one that I have is I have a very strong opinion about hiking pictures. I like to hike. We live in the mountains and there's some beautiful scenery and we look sometimes very cool and hip when we're hiking. So I think one hiking picture says, I have been on a hike. I am not opposed to hiking. That's fine. Put that on there. 2 hiking pictures says, I hike. Okay. That's what I do. 3 hiking pictures tells me you're going to make me go on a hike with you when I don't want to do it and I'm trying to sleep in. So I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you that's what that says. So I have that opinion. The other one I have, and we've talked about this before, multiple group pictures where you cannot discern who is the person in the profile. Why are you doing this, gentlemen? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing it? I can't even imagine the thought process that goes behind that. And another one that we talked about, putting a picture of yourself and another super hot person of the opposite sex or this, like whatever
you're interested in. Yeah.
When I was looking for dudes on apps and then there's a picture of me and a super hot chick with no explanation, like what am I doing with that information?
Is that your sister? Is that your ex? Is that your current girlfriend? Who is that?
We don't know. Waitress? How are we to know?
I think pictures of
And what do you want me to do with that information?
Yeah, I
Those are
think.
I don't have any do's. I think be yourself. I think be genuine and put in your bio what you're looking for
Mm-hmm.
and be honest.
Because I think as I have the finger out, so I'm serious. I think as we get older, because I used to be on these dating apps, I used to be more vague. But now as I'm getting older, I'm going to be more straightforward because I don't have time for you to waste my time. So I'm going to say what I like and what I'm into and what I'm looking for and be pretty specific about that, because if you're not into that, swipe left on me. I don't care because you're going to waste my time anyway. That's how I feel about it. That's all I got to say.
And again, no judgment.
But,
a little bit of judgment.
Yeah.
Probably on some of these, but just, I don't know. Any other thoughts on do's or don'ts?
I mean, I have more, but I think we can save them. Like,
okay. Well,
you can learn, everyone can learn a little more each episode on what you should and should not do on dating apps.
You let us know. Send us in what you think are the do's and don'ts of your of dating profiles.
Yeah, you're just super personal, and they're just that's fine. And I did want to mention, because we did get a question about self-care, and just real quick, I just wanted to say I heard us kind of quote Tabitha Brown, and she has become a really great source of self-care because she is thebomb.com, and she's just so nice, and her family is so wonderful, and she makes me happy. So this is a real quick, if you need a little self-care action, there you go.
I like it. And that's your business.
And that's your business.
Well, Alyssa, get that hammer out because we nailed it.
We're not doing that.
And look.
Oh,
we're not doing that.
We're going to be prop comics. This is perfect. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hope and Hysteria. Hopefully this was helpful to you. We will continue on. Send in your questions, send in your thoughts. Let Alyssa know if you're interested. If you don't have any dead fish in your profile, let Clarissa know if you have more than one picture. Don't let me know because I'm got a boyfriend. But
yeah, and I have options I'm assessing, but
oh yeah, that's not to say.
But you still come.
Okay. All right, friends. Take care. Be nice, and we'll see you later.